sorry to interrupt your dinner. I know
Not a problem.
you have
Full
to.
disclosure, I'm recovering from an ear infection and I'm deaf in one ear. So you better
Oh,
speak up.
okay.
I'm
You
wearing
sound
headphones.
great. Can you hear me? Okay. Is that
Yes. The reason I
okay?
chose the Google Voice line is because I can use my headphones and computer microphone. That's why we're doing it this
Okay.
way.
Good call. Awesome. Okay, so this isn't your first rodeo. You know how this works.
Yep.
Just for tape, I'll get your first and last name and your
I,
title for me, please.
I am Raywat Deonandan, epidemiologist and associate professor, Faculty of Health Sciences, University of Ottawa.
Amazing. Okay, so maybe if we could start, paint the picture for me of the COVID, or I guess the overall respiratory season so far, what you're seeing, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of respiratory virus activity going out there. It's really early in the RSV season. It's early in the flu season, but there are certainly flu cases. But COVID season is upon us, if you want to call it COVID season, and we're probably knee deep in COVID. I saw some estimate online that Ontario is looking at 70,000 infections per day, which sounds extraordinary, but it's not out of the realm of likelihood. So there is a lot of COVID running around, especially in healthcare settings. So for people in hospitals, they really should take extra precautions.
Okay. And in terms of this vaccine rollout, I mean, the new shot has been developed. It sounds like Moderna's the first shipment, at least here in Ottawa, what we're receiving. And I'm just wondering, we're rolling it out, or OPHs rather, in priority groups. And I'm wondering, I guess maybe 2, 3 years down the line, why that's still testing.
Yeah, because the people most likely to be hospitalized and die are still the high priority groups. So this new vaccine, the monovalent XBB 1.5 vaccine, is well targeted to the circulating strains. Not perfectly targeted, but more so than previous vaccines. And as a result, it has a higher probability of offering neutralizing immunity, meaning a higher probability of preventing infection to begin with, something we haven't seen since 2020. And at the very least, it has a very good probability of keeping you out of the hospital. So as a result, we want to use it to have the biggest bang on the population while we have limited supply. And that means keeping our most vulnerable out of the hospital and out of the morgue. So it makes sense to prioritize it to the high vulnerability group. However, we absolutely have to get it into the arms of people who want one, regardless of their vulnerability status, because that's how we slow penetration of the disease into the community, especially now that we have a vaccine that can offer a higher degree of neutralizing immunity, hopefully.
Right, and just as the example, Quebec initially had prioritized high-risk groups starting October 2nd, but today they tossed that aside, and now everyone's eligible. And I'm just wondering, are they going to be, I don't know how much you can tell of this, so don't feel any pressure, but I'm just wondering, are they going to be better off in that province now that everyone can get the jab or two jabs, flu and the new COVID-19, or is Ottawa going to be behind because now it's going to be weeks before the general population can get the shots?
It depends what you mean by better off, right? So does better off mean a lower mortality rate? No, I mean, by prioritizing those who need it the most, you're going to get a important reduction in the probability of hospitalization and death. So that's good. It also matters what the uptake rate is going to be. I don't know what the desire for this vaccination is in the general population. If you make it widely available and nobody wants it, does that really matter? It has to come with a campaign of information. And I don't know if that's happening either. Now, in the US, surprisingly, the demand seems to be outstripping supply in many parts of the country, which is inspiring. It suggests that people actually do want this vaccine more so than it was anticipated. And I'm kind of sensing the same thing here too. So your question is, will we be better off or worse off because of our rollout strategy? If we have enough supply, absolutely make it available to everybody as soon as you can. It comes down to the question of supply. Do we have enough to make it available? And if we don't, I think it's important to prioritize those most likely to suffer.
Right. You kind of briefly touched on it. It's part of, I mean, if it can be widely available but nobody wants it, it's just going to be sitting there, right? So the better off is also people wanting to get this shot. And I'm wondering, it's been a long time. I personally, I'm sure you are yourself, although you do this for a profession, aren't necessarily as tired as I am about talking about COVID, but there's been fatigue, right?
Yeah.
Like people, the numbers of people wanting to get these shots, even the flu shot, are dwindling if you look across the board. So I'm just wondering, how are we going to convince people
I don't know if we have to convince
to
them.
go get these vaccines?
Like the flu shot, I think requires probably more or needs or deserves more communication at this point, because we don't have any as much important lingering flu immunity. Well, actually, take that back. I'm not sure that's true. The flu shot's probably more important because, um, let me rephrase that again. The flu shot probably is deserving of more communication about the urgency because we know that flu can really horribly impact a lot of the population. And we know the vaccine has better acceptance. And so people need to know it's available. So they can get it. I know lots of people who are running out trying to get the flu vaccine and are shocked when it's not available. So the desire is already there. COVID vaccine at this point, a lot of people already have some degree of immunity based upon previous infection and based upon residual T cell immunity from earlier vaccination. So I can understand why there isn't as much urgency in some quarters. What the communication needs for the COVID vaccine are around the fact that COVID is not a benign infection. That long COVID is a reality. The estimates of its prevalence are wide-ranging, but 1% to 5% is not unreasonable. So that means if you got infected, you got a 1 to 5% chance of struggling with this for months afterwards. And so that's the element of communication that's missing from this. We haven't talked about the RSV vaccine either. So there's news now that that might be available very soon for seniors, and yet there's zero communication about that. Doctors' offices, I know, are getting calls from seniors asking for it, and the doctors aren't aware of it either. So there's been a widespread dropping of the ball here in terms of public health communication across all manner of vaccination, not just COVID and flu. And I understand everyone's overburdened and everyone's overworked, but it's kind of important. What ends up happening is this stuff gets downloaded onto doctors' offices, and they're not as equipped as you might think to manage it.
Right. My next question, I guess, is perhaps maybe a two-part question. So we've been told, OPH also echoed this, is that you can get both shots at the same time, so the flu vaccine as well as the updated COVID-19 vaccine. And I'm wondering, what is the effectiveness of that, or what necessarily is the point? And is it two separate needles? Like, should we be telling people also in our messaging that you're going in and you're getting two separate shots?
It's a good point. I never thought about that. Yes, it is two separate needles. They're not packaged together. They're different companies that make them. And they will not interact with each other in the sense that there'll be cross immunity of any kind. The only downside is you may get additional discomfort from the injection site, maybe a higher probability of some short-term adverse reactions like fever and pain. But the upside is greater convenience and earlier immunity from both diseases. So if it's offered to me, I would jump at it, getting both at the same time, absolutely. But yes, they're not packaged together. They're separate needles offered by separate manufacturers.
Okay, good to know. And then in terms of getting them both at the same time, I know OPH has said that it's safe and there's nothing wrong with it. You just said yourself that they don't interact. Maybe if you could just speak to that a little bit more clearly. Yeah.
I mean, it's like having, I guess, like wine with your dinner, maybe. Like they end up in the same place, but they're not, and they don't, well, it's a bad analogy. I'm pretty bad with analogies today.
I thought it was good.
I mean, it's sort of like wine with your dinner, but it's not. Wine with your dinner, they accentuate each other. Your palate gets additively enhanced, and they mix together in your stomach. This is not quite the same. Yeah, they'll both enter your bloodstream at the same time, but they're doing different things. They're targeting different aspects of your cells. They will both enhance your immune system, but your immune system is complex and not just one thing. So there's a lot there to target, and so they're just targeting different aspects of your physiology. They have nothing to do with each other. The only downside would be perhaps stronger than normal adverse reactions, by which I mean some pain and discomfort at the site of injection.
Right. Raywat, is there anything else you like to add, or something I'm missing about the rollout of the vaccine itself?
Well, what's happening too is people aren't aware about the new COVID vaccine, that it is different from the previous version. The previous version was the bivalent, which included a strain of Omicron and the original Wuhan strain. This is a monovalent that targets a descendant of Omicron. So if you go to get it, make sure that you're getting the new one. I understand there's some people getting boosted now unaware that they're being boosted with the old version. And the reason you want the new one is, as I mentioned, it is better targeted to the circulating strains and has a better chance of offering both neutralizing and longer term immunity. We may be looking here at the first steps towards an annual COVID vaccine. It may look something like this in the future. And it's kind of inspiring if we can manage to have future versions as well or better targeted as this one is to circulating strains, we can get a handle on this disease better.
That was kind of going to be, oh, sorry. That was kind of going to be my question, so I'm glad you answered that. I imagine that this is going to be something that's going to be alongside the flu vaccine for years to come, right?
Yeah, the question is, will it be annual? Will it be biannual? There's some debate about how it will look. I suspect it'll be annual. Or if we can get a mucosal vaccine. And a lot of people are working on that, and the Americans have pledged X billions of dollars to pushing the current candidates to clinical trials. A mucosal vaccine promises to better stop transmission and may be a one and done. And it will be an intranasal type vaccine. So better vaccines are coming down the pipeline. Right now we have these to work with, but better ones are coming. So for people who think that this is the rest of our lives and it's going to be a misery of getting 1 or 2 pokes per year, which by the way is not a misery, it's barely an inconvenience. That's not true. We're getting better vaccines, and so long as we keep our eye on the important health policies that allow those innovations to be funded, then we have a better chance of getting those better vaccines faster.
Awesome. All right, Raywat, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for interrupting your dinner.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye.